Good morning, Guru.
Good morning, GTW. How are you?
Doing well, sir. How are you?
Excellent. It's still nice outside, nice snow. How's the weather down in Virginia? It was pretty cold for you for too long, I guess. Now, how is it becoming? Is it
Uh,
changing at all, or?
yeah, we got a little bit of a reprieve heading into the later part of yesterday, but it sounds like, and I'm not one who's kind of like always keeping their eye on the weather. Whether I just wake up and deal with whatever the day is going to be like. But apparently, we have some kind of crazy winter storm coming through this Sunday. So. Yeah, I expect to go into the grocery store and find everybody has purchased all the toilet paper because that's exactly what you need when it's cold outside.
So you wrap yourself in toilet paper? Is that
I mean, that must be what they're doing. I can't figure out any other reason why the toilet paper winds up being the first thing that goes when it's going to be cold outside. If it was me, I'd be clearing out the wine aisle.
so? Yeah, but either you stuff your comforter with tons of toilet paper, make it bigger and warmer. Or I don't know. Maybe that's the thing. That's the thing down and at the beach.
It's an American thing, man. I don't know who started it, but for whatever reason, anytime anything that seems like it's going to require you to be inside your house for more than 2 days consecutively, apparently people just they buy toilet paper. I've yet to get a good rationale behind it.
Well, speaking of toilet paper, and before we introduce you to our this morning's guest, I just want to say hats off to your spectacular supply plan yesterday. That was almost to the penny on the target at the 463 up there. So 473, sorry. Just wow. Congrats,
Well,
brother.
thank
Really
you, sir.
well done.
I appreciate it.
Really well done. All right. So this morning we have someone that hasn't been with us yet. And go ahead. Do you want to introduce her?
Well, I'll let her introduce herself, and I should have realized when we got a PowerPoint in advance of this that we were dealing with one of our female members today, because no guy comes that prepared.
We are an organized species.
That's for sure. And I'm actually really excited about this because, while I am, I would say I would describe my knowledge of SPACs as loosely familiar. I think I'm going to learn something today, so I'm excited for that. So KLQ, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you find X trades? What got you into trading, and what drew you to wanting to learn so much about SPACs?
Okay, sure. So my background is actually anesthesia. So I actually I'm probably a little bit older than the average person that's in X trades, but I've been trading long term and shorter term as far as swings for a long time. And when COVID happened, actually, I was on call from home quite a bit instead of in the hospital. And I really missed that daily interaction that I had with a lot of the other personnel about, what are you looking at? What are you investing in? What are you grabbing? So I have to tell you guys, I've never had a Twitter account. I've never had a Facebook, no social media whatsoever. And I started scrounging around to try to find somebody to talk to. My husband has no interest, which is great. I can do whatever I want. So he just,
I
so
love it.
fantastic.
Trust me,
Um,
honey, plug's a winner.
right? Exactly. A real keeper there. And so I found you guys, kind of searching around the internet. And the fantastic thing is obviously not just the conversations, but that I have learned so much more about trading in the past 9 months or so that I've been with you guys than I could have ever learned anywhere else. So that's fantastic. As far as the SPACs go, it was just one of those things. I tend to invest in sectors at a time, and so if any of you guys know, actually, Ride and Workhorse started in Youngstown, Ohio, where I'm from.
Yep.
So when those plants started opening up, it sparked a lot of conversation. So I decided to direct myself to the EV sector, which has been a really good move. And somebody just said to me at work one day, there's a couple rainmakers out there, a couple bank guys that are starting these SPACs, and I think they're going to start looking at EVs. And it was as simple as that. And of course, I grabbed CCIV because everybody knows I'm just a lucid lover. So that was one of my first. And then I saw that SBE was going to be ChargePoint, and that was a SPAC, and it just went from there. And as you could see from the PowerPoint and all of my chats and uploads, I absolutely love to just dig into a company. So I decided to just make that SPACs. And then I learned you can trade them daily.
Can you quickly share what the difference is? Well, what is a SPAC in essence compared to an IPO?
Absolutely. And for the members in the audience, I do have, as JTW said, a PowerPoint that I will go ahead and put in the discussion when we're done, so you can have it for reference. But SPACs, as we know, they're just those blank check companies, and their only purpose is to find a business that they can merge with, and they have a very limited time span that they can do that, which is why sometimes you will see us talking about extending shareholder votes for 6 months. And unlike like an IPO or a regular investment company, they are just set up with a pool of funds from a financier to make that deal within a time frame. And they can do that with a lot of less restrictions than a traditional IPO, and with a more significant amount of capital, which makes them advantageous to the companies, but makes them kind of a little bit of an enemy of, as we know, of the SEC. So the SEC likes rules and restrictions and limitations. So the SPACs take a little bit of a beating here and there. Does that kind of answer that for you
Yeah,
guys?
sure. And how do you, there sometimes they're referred to a pump and dump kind of thing. How do you go about that? How do you deal? I mean, we're getting really technical without asking more questions, but I'd like to go deeper in that SPACs.
Of course. I mean, and you will hear, I mean, you can't turn into, of course, Squawk Box or CNBC without at some point somebody saying, oh, SPACs, they're no good, they're pump and dumps, that kind of thing. And I even put in the PowerPoint at the end, because I find it very interesting. I don't think that most of us in the audience or even out there realize just how many companies that we eventually invest in that started off at SPACs. For example, I see a lot of people in the chats going ahead and SoFi right now. Well, SoFi was the first SPAC to have a deal in 2021. So there's a lot of companies that we invest in that actually started off as SPACs, and we call them D-SPACs. So when you hear me referencing that, when I say D-SPAC, they actually have their merger now with the company. As far as the pump and dump thing, I mean, obviously it's hard to identify any company that's going to do well or not dump. But what I try to do is I try to do what I said at the beginning, like find what I call the rainmakers, like Michael Klein had the CCIV. This is a guy that spent his lifetime in the banking industry, took over companies, made them more profitable. So if he takes on a SPAC, I'm more likely to look at that as something that's going to take off long term. As far as if I don't know the CEO behind it, if they have a targeted company, I'm also more likely to indicate a trade in them. For example, when a company just says, we are forming capital for the interest of targeting something in the software, medical, biotech, or finance industry, I'm a little hesitant to pull the trigger. But when they say we're specifically looking at lithium batteries, that perks my interest. Does that make sense? Does that answer that question a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's not vague, it's very specific.
Right. Again, unless the CEO is somebody that tends to make a lot of money. Like BENE is a SPAC right now. I don't have a lot of interest in it, but what I find interesting is the CEO of it is the same guy that's the finance partner to Trump in most of his deals and the CEO on DWAC. So it's going to run. So I think when you're looking at SPACs, I, I think it's what's your end game, which again is the question you ask yourself with most of your trades, right? What is your end game? Is it short term? Is it swing? Is it day trade? Um, I think what I'd love for people to take away from my thread, or our thread, I should say, but I seem to spend a lot of time in it. And from this podcast is that we know the market has not been giving us the swings and the day trades that we used to have. We know it's volatile. I feel like if you want to participate in those kind of trades still, you can find patterns and safety to a certain extent in the SPACs. And that's what I like about them. Underneath the volatility, underneath the pump and dumps, underneath all the waves, there's this foundation that's very set in its patterns. For example, you'll take a SPAC and let's take it's what's perfect is Branson today. Today gives me a perfect opportunity. He's got, as we know, SPCE and he's got VORB. VORB is having a launch today. He has been selling off his shares up to the amount that he actually originally invested in SPCE for the last couple months. And I pointed that out in the chats for the last couple times, and redirecting that money into his new SPAC. So what you're going to see is you're going to see an easy 3 to 8, 10% gain in VORB this week. And you're going to see SPCE drop off. And I that pattern I could call out with 50 of the SPACs. I don't want to just keep going on and on. Do you have, because clearly I can. Do you have other specific questions?
Well,
I mean,
no.
we're looking at mainly because they are newer on the market. Are you playing options on these or only
So it
the
depends.
equity?
Typically, so I start off in the day trades and the swings, and then I do move into options eventually. Now, I usually do the option for, I have GGPI as an option. So that's the Polestar, that's the SPAC that's going to merge with the Polestar. That merger is going to happen somewhere around February. So I took calls out to March. That way, if they do some sort of vote where they prolong it a little bit, you still get in that that run. So yeah, I do take options depending on the merger date. What you're going to see with the SPACs is you're going to see a run when they announce the deal. You're going to see a sell off when pipe lockup expires and when shares and warrants are redeemed. And then you're going to see a run again right before the merger. And then, of course, if the company's good, like something like Lucid or ChargePoint or something like that, and I think Polestar will fall into that category, you're obviously going to see the valuation go up over time.
Now, in order for our audience to be able to organize all this in a proper way, because JTW said it, we're not organized. You are, but we're not. How do you suggest one would start? Where to look, how to start, and what to look for?
So I mean, obviously X Trades is a great place to look because we all post. But when I started, I know this is going to come as a shocker. I made a spreadsheet. So I started off with a spreadsheet. And what I do is I go into, I subscribe to IPO and SPAC websites. But I know that those websites you can get the limited amount of information like a calendar for free, like you can the FDA calendar. So I would go in and list maybe for the month, let's say, all the SPAC deals that are on the table, and they'll list them in a calendar. Like, here's a shareholder vote tomorrow, or this one is set to merge, January 20th. Something, or this one, if they don't find a deal in the next month, they're going to lose their funding. So they will list all that in a calendar. I think Alpha might something. I think there's a website. I think if you just Googled it, you could find it, but I'm pretty sure that's free, the calendars.
Now you make it sound like well, something new for many members. It obviously is when you're well prepared and when you organize your things properly. It can be very rewarding. What's the downside? How can we have some risk management
Well,
looking at this?
so the downside is, I mean, obviously, like any trade, even though I state that there's a pattern, that pattern could break any day. Nobody may be interested in the SPAC. They can liquidate. If I do always caution people that are new to this, I think I just had this discussion with somebody in here the other day. If you're going to purchase warrants and units, and the company does not find a merger deal, those can actually expire worthless. So you do have to be cautious with that, which is one reason that I try to look at who the CEO is, because you do want somebody that at least maybe has a good record. So, and as far as risk management, the way that I do it is I typically buy just a handful. Like, and when I say handful, I mean 1 to 12 shares, because they're typically, $10 and under, of something that I'm looking at, so that I can keep a really close eye on it. Because you in the beginning, we don't really have charts on these. So this is something that you really have to do your homework on and look at the fundamentals. So I think that's probably the best way that I manage the risk is, one, look at the background of who's running this SPAC, and two, buy 1 to 5, 10 shares, something of that sort, and just monitor it. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, it does. But you said I'm not throwing darts at you. I'm just
That's
trying
okay.
to
I can handle it.
I'm just trying to learn here. You mentioned the Virgin Orbit.
Mhm.
Looking at it, I mean, you were right. I mean, you look at it, and from January 6th, it went from about $6, and it took about 100%. It went to 11.28, a
Mhm.
high that it's showing. So you would what point would you enter the play? And now that it took like 100%, you're still monitoring the play? Are you looking
Yeah,
for a
so
pullback
Borg
or?
I actually entered a few days ago. And I think a few people in here did. I saw some other people enter that. And then I sold some and scaled back in again yesterday when he delayed the launch. That's so when I'm buying one of these based on what Branson's doing and the fact that they're going to have a launch, I will stay in it until that event occurs. If it seems like that event is getting prolonged, or there's poor publicity around it, I'll get out of the position, hopefully, obviously still at a profit. But just like Vorb, I do think that most of the time, if you do your homework, these are pretty easy to read. He's selling off another company, he's investing the money elsewhere, and at the same time, he's on CNBC talking about his new company, and they're planning a launch. I, Obviously, anything can happen, but it seems pretty clear the direction that his two tickers are going to go, right? I mean, just from the fundamentals.
Correct. So you follow the news. You follow.
Absolutely. I
Great.
don't think you
Okay.
can do these without following it. Because, like I said, I mean, until they're well established, you don't really have charts.
Correct, because looking at that Virgin orbit, I mean, there's not really a chart. I mean,
No.
there's a dump in the top, and that's
Sure.
Yeah,
And
I posted it in the discussion podcast discussion thread, the viewer chart.
yeah,
um,
that's pretty typical when you start off.
what
Yeah,
I often look at is the option volume on specific strikes, and looking at, like, right now as we're talking, I'm looking at the January 21st, the option, the 1250 calls, and
Mhm.
it appears like 2 days ago the volume was 2.2K on that one. On a ticker that has low volume like this, it's pretty meaningful. So
Right.
either people are going to make sure it doesn't get to that 12.5 because they sold the option and they want to
Right.
keep it under, or other people are going to make sure that it gets above that um, by purchasing and making sure there's volume appearing. We're looking at prices that varied from 26 cents to 95 cents. So I like to look at the highest price is 95 cents. So that makes the ticker almost at 13.5 at expiration in order to break even
Mhm.
for these guys. Um, so are you looking at the option volume at all in order
I
to have
do, I
targets?
do. It depends, and again, it depends on how confident I am. I've been, like I said, I've been doing this probably with the SPACs going on about 2 years. So I feel like I'm pretty in tune to the patterns, and to the momentum and the volume. But if it's something that I'm not overly confident in, I will look at that. But as I said, I hate to pontificate over it, but I really feel that these kind of tickers very much follow a pattern. And and sometimes, when again in the market last year when we had a lot of these, especially because I trade a lot pre-market, I'm up at 4 a.m. So when we had a lot of these huge runners in the morning, that would get to sometimes 20, 30%, and you could buy them and sell them off quick. I think that we get a little disappointed, which we should not, but we get a little disappointed sometimes when we're day trading or swinging into tickers that are only giving us somewhere from 5 to 10%. But if you added up all the SPACs and de-SPACs over the time and added up all those very patterned, consistent 5 to 10% gains, you would have yourself a very nice portfolio.
Oh, no one's spitting on 5% a day. There's a
Right.
guy. There's a guy in here promoting 1%, and he's making a
Right.
living out of it. So
Exactly. I don't know if I put it, I did, in the PowerPoint that you'll all receive. I did put in there the best performing SPACs of 2021. And I don't know, JTW and Guru, if you had a chance to look at it yet, but I do want to point out that the top 20, and I only included the top 20, had gains anywhere from 74 to 651%. So they're not without huge gains.
Eh, but you still have to be careful with the downside when it does,
Absolutely.
when the merger
Absolutely.
doesn't happen, when it doesn't quite go as planned.
Absolutely. You cannot take, I will say that, and I'm glad you pointed that out. You can't take your eye off of them. You really can't. News is
So,
very important with these.
are you considering SPACs to be more of a gamble, or it needs to be an educated guess?
Um, I hate the word gamble with trading, but
I know. I mean,
I really do.
I
Um,
just, I'm glad you said something about bios, and I'm not a fan of bios. I'm sure you do. I'm not a fan. Um, we talked about pump and dumps.
right,
It will get an FDA approval
right,
on let's say a third revision, whatever,
yeah,
and they get out with a fantastic drug that is going to save the world, and first thing you know, it dumps all day.
right,
So
right,
it's something to me that is hard to trade. A lot of people make a lot of money with these, but to me, it's out of my recipe book. It's something that I just can't touch. However, you found a recipe that works for you, and
Correct.
you found a proper way of making sure that your risk management can be contained in well, in your case it's an Excel sheet or a PowerPoint, but
Right.
for the rest of us peasants, how do you suggest that it can be contained and looked at, and making sure that people can be safe playing those?
Well, I do think if you are going to enter them and you're not going to do the lengthy TA or DD or however you want to classify it, and they're just going to be kind of part of your daily watch list, and you're in a lot of other things. Pick one, and what I would say is to start off, go with something that you think is going to be a positive outlook in a company or a long-term investment in case it does dump for a day or you get stuck in it. If you look at the best performing SPACs of 2021, they're most of these that had 400% gains are companies that are going to be around. Lucid, Technoglass, DraftKings, Simply Good Foods, MP Materials. I mean, those are all companies that even if you bought it at $10 and got your $16 um, rumor merger news pump, and then the next day after the shareholder vote, nobody cared about it and it fell to $8, you're going to be back in the money at some point. So I think that if you are going to start off and you're not going to you're not going to follow the news, you're not going to follow the rumors, and you're not going to do some sort of organized spreadsheet, you're just in and out, then, pick a company that you're good with.
It's really interesting because what you make it sound is everyone wants to know who's going to be the next Amazon and the next
Of
Apple.
course.
I wish I could have bought Bitcoin when it was $1. Everyone says that, right? So
Right, of
you
course.
make it sound like there's a possibility that we can find those with proper digging, right? And
Right,
no mining. Bios and miners are, similar,
right.
but but
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
well, we always say, right, money makes money. And I listen to, of course, Mr. 1%'s podcast because he's fantastic to follow. And, he said something on there about, something to the effect, and I don't want to misquote him, but it was something to the effect of work, work like nobody else works to live like nobody else lives. And that may have been his exact quote. I'm not sure. But I think that's, I think that applies to looking for these SPACs. I mean, the guys that make money and lives and finance successful companies and know how to find a company to merge with that's going to make them money, because remember, at the end of the day, these guys that put up the initial, or women I should say, initial investments for these companies, they want to get back a 600% return. They want to make money. So I think that if you find people that consistently invest well and work hard, you will profit from their returns.
I This is not the first time that I'll say this, but I've said this to every woman in our podcast and more. I really admire how women have the ability to attack things in a different way. A good friend of mine is a head of head of firefighters in not far from where I live, and I said to him, how come they have these contests and stuff, and I said, how come it's so brute force oriented? You have this 6'3" guy taking down a 300-pounder down the stairs, lifting up this and lifting up that. How come you have so many women on the payroll now as firefighters? And he said, if you look at a 300-pounder that has lost consciousness on his bed, will you consider taking him on your shoulder and go down the stairs with him. And I said, of course I will. I'll take him up and I'll do it everything I can in order to bring him down the stairs in order to save his life. And he says, that's exactly why we have women in the group. Why? Because she will never, ever consider taking that man because she knows she won't be able to. She will find another way of getting that man down the stairs. And so he says the approach is completely different because the means are different. If I small small personal life here example, my wife is extremely well organized. You remind me of my wife. Everything is well organized in her work, but when it gets time to having all the 4 kids, 2 dogs, everything is extremely organized. She has a paper with a list of things that she has to do, and sometimes I'm like, why do you have this laundry? You know that you're going to do it. She says, no, it's part of my organization, and it's just things are so well organized. I think men have the ability to rely on performance. They and it's been that for years, right? And the fact that you can make sure that your personal life and professional life get organized in a proper way, that you don't get mixed up. We have a lot to learn from that. I mean, I find this more true when I see women in business, and the more and more we get women on the show and here trading, it's kind of evident. I mean, it's clear that you have the ability to make things clearer and not rely just on brute force or performance, knowing we can do it and trying to to perform in a way that we sometimes don't master. So I raise my hat to that, and I think we should all learn from I don't know, spreadsheets and PowerPoints are maybe the key to success. But like you said, if you don't look deeper into news, um, rumors, and search a little bit more, it's maybe it's more of an educated guess. And you said you don't like gamble, so when you know better, you always end up being better. So thank you for sharing that with us. It's a
Well, I
really
appreciate
really
it.
enlightening. Yeah. Do you only trade SPACs?
No, no. I mean, I do. I like I like to be in sectors at a time. I mean, I will follow. Of course, I'll follow JTW on a spy play. Who doesn't? And I do trade in an like I have options in Wells Fargo right now because I like the way that looks. So I will do other plays, but I prefer for the most part to stick with SPACs, obviously, and a sector. So right now, for me, that's auto, EV. I was just, I think it was with Shinmun I was chatting this morning that I'm seeing I think the battery space is going to be the semiconductor space of 2022. So I'm doing a battery ETF and I'm looking at that. So no, I do other stuff, but I really like to compartmentalize it. I really don't like to cast a wide net at one time.
You
That's
know that
just that
you know
works
that
for,
well you know that Wells Fargo is reporting tomorrow, right?
yes.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be in the 60s. I'm just going to put that out here on the podcast. And I think the stock's going to hit the low 60s. I hope. That's my bet in the calls, Guru. So
Uh,
we'll see.
all right. And how do you plan your day? You said you follow JTW's
Do.
spy
So
plan.
I
So how
get
do you
up at
plan your
4
day
a.m.
ahead?
East. I get up at 4 a.m. and I get everything set up. I get my spreadsheets out. I have a notebook that's specifically for trading. I I go through everybody's watch list for the day that I follow. Write down what their tickers are, what their price targets are. I go through mine. Obviously, it's great when you see overlap, right? That's typically a good sign. Just for the Wells Fargo thing, for example, Popper had sent me a chat that he went in on the same calls. So, when you see something like that, it's obviously a nice confirmation and makes me more confident in it. And then I plan it out. And I'll tell you, I think the thing about the spreadsheets for me and the notebook is not just the organization, but it takes the emotion out of it for me. I can tell you that if I'm not looking at my words or my numbers on a piece of paper and that ticker is changing one way or the other rapidly, and I'm seeing, I'm hearing the bleep on my computer, and I'm seeing people going in or selling. I, like anybody probably, have a tendency to have FOMO. And I mean, there's a reason that that expression exists. I'm not exempt from it, as any more than anybody else. However, if I have in front of me on a piece of paper something that says, don't, VORB might get to 13.2, but, you know, their Branson's, you know, the money that Branson's putting into it, or their P&E sheets, or, I look at that kind of stuff a lot, does not support a valuation over that. I won't go over it. So I think for me, the organization and having something in writing in front of me really takes the emotion out of it.
So that's your recipe book.
That's my recipe book.
So you
I
stick to
like to
that.
write. I do.
You stick to that. You read it every day, and this way you can avoid FOMO.
I read it every day. I write it. I write everything down. Now, 99% of the time, right? I mean, there is that 1% that, boy, I don't care what I wrote down. That looks really good. And I can tell you that I almost always regret it. Almost always. It's pretty rare that I don't. I mean, and there's things that defy any organization, right? Like, why are the Trump stocks running every day? I have no idea. He's not saying anything. I mean, so there's obviously things that defy any type of organization or that you can't foresee. And I mean, I think that's where we get into educated guesses and experience and a little bit of gambling, or even though I don't like that word.
Let's rewind a few words. You said 99% of the times
Mhm.
you stick by your rules, and that 1% you often regret it. Do you?
Absolutely.
I don't know if you agree with me, but sometimes when you break your rules, and I've said this over and over again, the fact that you break your rule, if it works, it allows you, gives you the right to do it again the next time,
Mhm.
because you said, oh, this rule is now okay to be broken because I made 100% on that last play when I broke my rule. But I don't know if you agree with me, but we remember a lot more the times that we went on that 1% against the rules where it didn't go our way. We remember those plays a lot more than the times we did not take the play and we missed out. Let's say you missed out on Tesla this week. You said, okay, I don't play, because I know JTW doesn't like to play Tesla. So he looked at it probably from the sidelines, said, okay, guys are right. It's up. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
sitting by the sidelines and I'm okay with that. But he hasn't lost a dime on it. He's stuck to his rule, which was do not play Tesla. Hasn't lost a dime. And on that 1% where he would have probably stepped the line and said, okay, I'm breaking that rule, he's doesn't care about it. As opposed to if you were going to that 1% breaking the rule, you do remember the ones that, oh, I knew about it, I broke my rule, and it did exactly what it should have done, which is go the opposite way of my play. So
Pretty much. Tesla's
And
my
I
credit.
think, yeah, I think it's fantastic that you said that, because, and I'm sure if the students get tired of hearing me say this, but I actually lecture some for the medical students and the residents, and I say to them all the time, We learn from the things that go wrong, not by the things that go right. I say that to them every time they're down on themselves for, something in the clinical setting that did not go the way they want. And I say, you won't do that again. This is what we learn from. We don't learn from the things that go right. So I think it's great that you said that, because I say that to the student. I mean, obviously in a different situation, but I say that to the students all the time.
I think it takes us in outside of our comfort zone. When it's all planned and it goes exactly as planned, you don't remember it.
Right.
Because it was all planned. It went exactly as you had planned it. And why would you remember it? This is what you shot for, and this is what happened. What's the point of remembering it?
Oh,
If it doesn't go your way and it ends up doing something completely different, well, then you will remember it. It's just like when you're driving your car. If you turn the steering wheel to the left side and the car turns left, you're not concerned about it because it's exactly what it's supposed to do. But if it starts going right when you turn left, now you'll start asking questions. So it's pretty much exactly what you're saying. And I
yes.
hope your students don't make too big of mistakes. But
Right? I'll give all the guys in here a sports analogy that love sports. I had a surgeon say to me once, because I do anesthesia, so obviously we're behind the curtain. The surgeon's obviously doing the surgery, and I had him say to me once, anesthesia should be just like the defense. If you're doing your job, I shouldn't know you're there. And I think that's a little bit right. I thought it was really funny, and I think that's a little bit of what you're saying. Like, if everything's going the way that it should go, nobody should be thinking about it.
I've got some surgeon friends, and that is a very surgeon.
It is, isn't
That is like the epitome of something a surgeon would say.
yeah, like should I be concerned about this patient waking up while I'm
Right,
operating?
right.
No, it's
Yeah,
all under control.
right. That's his point. If I don't have to think about it, you're doing your job.
Great, great. All right. Lately we had FOMC minutes coming out last week that had a big cold shower on the market. That was kind of turned around with JPAL speech and back to pretty much we're not quite there yet, but pretty much to pre FOMC drop. How do you see how this affects the market? How do you see? Well, let's. My question it will be directed to why you're playing banks at the moment, because I kind of know why. But how do you see the market going as the FOMC going a little more hawkish? Interest rates are going higher. Um,
Well, I'm playing Wells Fargo.
um, you're playing Wells Fargo, thinking that the interest rates will have a good positive effect on banks?
Correct.
Good. Okay. Because just for the new members, when rates are going up, usually banks benefit from that. So many banks are reporting tomorrow. I believe Wells Fargo is one of them. We have a few others. Citibank. I think we have First Republic Bank, J.P. Morgan. Who else? I think that's about it. That's all Friday. That's all tomorrow morning. We have then Goldman Sachs is next week. So it will set the tone for the banks to report later on the following week. But keep in mind that when we have rates going up or rates to be announced to go up, obviously guidance will be higher for all these banks. Don't you think that it could all be priced in because everyone kind of thinks the same way or believes in the same thing that you believe in?
So obviously it could be. That's something that we'll find out. I think that once again, I base my trading on my experience and history. And for me, what I have seen historically is, even though it appears to be priced in, and the market will settle for a day or so. It seems to me that whenever we get these interest rate hikes or hawkish changes, at some point, it may not be the day or within the 48, 72-hour period that we think it's going to happen, but within a reasonable amount of time, at least within the amount of time that I am planning to hold on to whatever option, call, put, whatever I'm doing, I do think that we still see a reaction from the market. That's what I take away.
Awesome.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, totally, totally. And you know what? The nice thing is, um, the reason why I feel it's pretty much at a resistance point right now, and you believe it's going to pop and get over. We're talking about WFC here, Wells Fargo. Um, the reason why it's I agree with that is there's no one good answer, right? Otherwise, it would be a at a different point. Either it would have tanked all week, or it would have skyrocketed all week. So there's still a fair amount of indecision, and everyone's waiting for guidance and reports for. I believe guidance will have more of an effect than whatever they report. Um, Banks have a heavy weight in the S&P 500. Heavy, not as heavy as tech, but is kind of a heavy weight. So the fact that they will probably hold very well, like you're saying, is probably very good for the market and the market sentiment, even if we are going more into a hawkish kind of market. I think it's very good. So yeah, I agree, and it's. Yeah, I don't play banks a lot unless it's after they report. Pretty much, tomorrow would be a good day for me on just catch that volatility. But we all have our favorite tickers. I like Bank of America for being very cheap on options, and the reward is often pretty good. I'm extremely excited to have you today because it's very how can I say this? I think you become a very good model for a lot of us, showing us how well prepared we need to be even before entering a play. Saying that even when you enter a play, you look at your piece of paper saying if it gets to that, that's pretty much where I'll be exiting. Even if you see all these big green candles going up and up and up, and you feel like it's going to go to the moon, you're okay with sticking to the plan before you enter the play. So hats off for that. And we've been saying it over and over, and I think it's the only proper way to to be consistent, because you are consistent with your plan, not with something that is maybe improvised along the way. So thank you for sharing that with us this morning.
Well, I certainly appreciate you having me, and I appreciate everybody in the audience taking the time out of their morning to listen. So thank you.
Yeah,
Do
no,
you
thank you for being here,
do
for
you
coming so prepared.
yeah
I mean,
No problem.
level of preparation this morning makes me feel like I don't work hard enough.
I'm sure you do just fine.
yeah, I said it. We all feel like peasants this morning. Um, um, do you pay attention to the market calendar at all? Like this morning, we had the PPI data, and we have jobless claims coming
I
out.
do. CPI always makes me nervous. So I was very low key yesterday. Um, I didn't have a lot of plays set up for the day. So yeah, I do look at the calendar. Um, and today I'm just, in fact, my watch list today was pretty much either just the options that I entered in, or SPACs, which for the most part, and we're out of time, but I will say, I probably should have said earlier, for the most part, they kind of defy the market calendar, right? Because they're running off their own pattern for the most part. So for me, they're a very nice, safer play on days where the calendar kind of affects the way that things are going to go for the day.
Right. They're kind of immune to the
Right.
the market talks and
Right.
all right. I like that. So it's kind of safe haven if you
A
know what
little
you're
bit.
doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We are 8 minutes until the bell.
Yep.
What are you looking at this morning other than the banks?
Me, again, I have mostly SPACs on. I think that DNAA is going to announce a deal, if not today, tomorrow, any day. So I have them on watch. I bought, like I said, 5 shares. That's it. Just so I can keep an eye on it. I've got VORB. Obviously, I have the options in WFC. I always watch Lucid to see what it's doing. Um, and yep, that's pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much, I'm really just watching mostly SPACs today. GGPI, I'm watching again. I really think that's going to make big moves soon. As soon as the polls, as soon as we get a date, as soon as Polestar comes out and says, here's the shareholder vote date, you can expect it to move.
Where can we follow you?
Actually, Remy actually created a thread that is SPAC and IPO discussions. It's under the main stock chat. And I put heat maps in there. I put IPOs in there. I put everything. There's a lot of words in there. There's a lot of words in there. Some people seem to enjoy reading it though.
I,
I'm
I'm
actually
sure
looking at that right now.
I'm sure that thread's going to explode pretty soon after this morning in your DM box. How busy is your DM box?
It's fairly busy actually. I get a lot of questions about SPACs and IPOs, and a lot of people put them in the discussion thread now that it's there as well. But I actually do get quite a bit of DMs about it, and I love answering about it. I think it's great. I,
Awesome.
I love I
Well,
love having that thread.
thank you very much. JTW, are you watching anything this morning?
Yeah, I've got my eyes on Riot still. I mean, we're obviously in an active trade, have been for a little bit, and it looks like it's finally getting the traction that I was expecting it to get, maybe a little bit sooner, especially with Bitcoin retesting this 43.3K level. That's a daily support resistance level that I've got on my chart. We rejected it, pretty darn close to being within few dollars of that level yesterday, which wasn't surprising. We're testing it again going into market open this morning. So if we break through this level, I'd expect all the crypto tickers to continue with the next leg up. Also, really like the idea of taking a sympathy play. I'm not really. I haven't figured out which way I like playing it, but with all the banks reporting at the end of the week, I would definitely recommend to folks who are interested in, kind of playing an earnings lotto without taking the IV hit, or the IV crush, I should say. XLF, which is basically the Spiders financial sector ticker. That would be a good one to keep on watch with all the banks reporting tomorrow. And then last but not least, I know we've got a lot of folks that are already on this one and have been crushing it with NIO. But if it can get over 32, I think it looks really good for a test to at least 34, if not 35. So those are the ones that I'd be keeping on my watch list. And of course, SPY is my bread and butter. I'm playing and watching that every day, except for Wednesday.
Awesome.
Wednesdays typically lighter, but I did saw a couple of decent opportunities yesterday, and I just so happened to have really good entries yesterday. I just as soon as I finished typing my alerts yesterday, it was like at 25%. And at that point, it's more of a trade journal than an actionable post. So I avoided posting the alerts, but mentioned those in the options chat yesterday.
Excellent. I'm pretty much in the same boat with BTC. I'll go towards the AMD and NVIDIA. I think they're about to break out. NVIDIA is really on that verge, and MU is this morning was upgraded, and it looks very, very pretty. It has a high in the 97s and close to 98. I think it could break that 98. I'm not sure it's going to happen this week, but with the last upgrade, I think it's bound to see new highs. MU was kind of the black sheep in that sector, and now it's trading with more confidence, and I think we're going to see more upside from that ticker, even long term. So. Yeah, folks, it's 3 minutes until the bell. I want to again say a very warm thank you to KLQ for accepting this invitation this morning and for your generosity this morning. This has been great. So thank you for being with us.
Thanks, guys. And just let everybody know, I will upload that PowerPoint into the podcast discussion.
What? It's not done yet? Everyone's waiting for that.
I was afraid I would lose my space here. So, all right. Thanks, guys. Have a great trading day.
Thanks, folks. Thank you, JTW again, and we will see you guys on Friday afternoon.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.